Hey, good morning, everybody. It is time for our Saturday morning date live. Date morning live. Live morning date. I don't know.
We're still figuring that one
I
out.
haven't figured it out because it's supposed to be the replacement of a date night. So editing the privacy settings so that this can stream public. And we're going to jump right in.
Yeah.
Kristen preset a topic, and so it was my turn to preset the topic. And I like to go simple. We're just going to talk about life.
Nice.
With the turn of the new year, you know, you hear all this planning and setting, and so we're going to just talk about life. And you know, do you think you set yourself up for 2025 well? I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little tired of hearing about annual planning and goals and setting them. Not that we didn't set them, but just like, okay, let's move, let's get going, let's do it. So I am, just so that you guys know the format, we just answer questions. We kind of talk about what we did this week, and so put your questions, your thoughts, your insights in the chat, because this is meant to totally be like you're in our date, in our morning, and in our heads. So put your questions down, and we can just have a conversation. It's super fun. It's super casual. It can get super intense, as in raw, real, open, and honest. And that's not for everybody. So if that's not for you, you probably want to move on, find somebody else to watch. But if that's you and you like that honesty, openness, rawness, you know, talking about struggles and successes, this is your place. And so talk about life. We have Tammy. Hey, Tammy is always on here every Saturday morning.
Nice.
We're late, Tammy. I was working on a finance spreadsheet and I was like knee deep into it. I'm like, I can't stop. And we have Susan Strayer. Hey, I wonder if you're in Cape Coral right now. Yeah. Oh, not Strayer. That's Susan Stalker. Sorry. Wrong Susan. Like we can just talk. We're going to talk about life, what we've been doing. We'd love to hear what you guys are doing as far as like the new year rolling in, and like what are some insights? So you guys are going to laugh at us, but I'd love to hear like what's the temperature where you're at right now.
Yeah.
I know everyone is going through like a super cold time. I like California right now is just breaking my heart. Like I don't even want to try to attempt to understand what they're going through. It's absolutely horrible. But for a majority of us, like our son he moved to Oklahoma from Florida, and it was like 16 degrees. And he's like, Mom, I don't have clothes for this. Like, I don't even like have proper blankets. So the cold here in Florida has affected our, regular morning date. So we've modified it and changed it because I refuse to go outside if it's 40 degrees outside.
We actually set a rule where if it was, what was it? Oh my gosh. If it was below 74 degrees, we have sweaters. I don't know if that hits anybody there, but I think it was below 74 degrees. Yeah. But now we've kind of shifted it to, well, one is waking up anywhere from 5 to 5:30 on average, but
Yep. Waking up at 5:30. Chris has to drag me out of bed.
but we instead of walking, we've been sitting by the fire. It's been really nice.
It's a fake fire on our Fire Stick TV, Amazon Fire TV.
Yeah, hearing the warm crackly sounds. Can't feel it, but you can hear it.
Nope. So we've changed our date morning to we're not walking as much right now. I'm hoping I can get back to it, but we're doing, you know, coffee in the morning and hot tub after that. So super nice. Susan says it's 32 in Nashville with several inches of snow.
Strayer.
And then Tammy said 34 degrees in Atlanta. So, you know, the weather can dramatically impact the way you feel, like how you're operating in the day to day, how you get dressed. Man, I've felt it over the last few weeks, even though we live in South Florida. It kind of put a damper on like my morale, my personal, like how I was feeling, because it was cold. It's raining today. I don't want to go outside.
Yeah.
I want to put jogging pants on. If you guys follow me on social media, you probably noticed that I've looked like death for the last week or two. And because I don't want to like put clothes on, I want to put comfy clothes on.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about, tell them what you surprised me with.
Oh yeah. So last minute, and this is part of my me trying to be spontaneous, is found a pocket of time that worked.
Well, also, why did you do this? Well, like, because of, if we said we got our stuff done, we'd treat ourselves.
Yeah. So we had this grand plan to really put our heads down and work, and this was the whole 200 hours topic last week, I think. But working straight 200 hours, day and night.
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. But we needed to, and Libby's the one that said it, is that we needed a definitive end goal or something, a reward or something to look forward to afterwards. So we said, if we get this done and we hit certain goals, we had those lined up, that we would treat ourselves and go on a vacation, like a proper vacation. And then we kind of got to it and we're like, well, shoot, like what the heck do we do?
Yeah. So we're like, what do we do? And sadly, because we didn't really have anything lined up, we were going to do a staycation, but the weather sucks here, so you can't do a staycation. Oh, maybe it's not on? I don't know. It's maybe not. The weather's, I did this. I don't know. The camera's following me. So this is probably what you guys get yourself into too as an entrepreneur, right? You say, okay, I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to work. I'm going to get this project done. And then you break your old habits because you're trying to meet a deadline, you're trying to do a project, and you break those old habits. And then when you say the project's done, okay, like we're going to treat ourselves. So you saw me post that the 2 weeks is up. We got just about everything done we wanted to. And then we were like, now what? Because we said we wouldn't treat ourselves until we finished it.
Yeah.
And so then you still got to like book and buy things, and last minute's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cheap. But the other thing we noticed it did to us is that it broke our regular habits, and we're in work mode and we can't get out of work mode. Like we're still working like 100 hours a week. We cannot stop.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, I find myself looking back and saying, I've done this before.
Mm-hmm.
And you just keep working into burnout. And then all of a sudden, like you hate your life and you hate your business and you're tired and you're like, and you're burnt out. And so what did you do, Chris?
So last minute, I was conspiring with a few people, but last minute booked a 2-day trip, flight out to St. John, Virgin Islands.
Ooh, packing the bikini.
Without kids.
Oh, sorry.
So that we can have what we've been trying to, honestly, we've been trying to do this. I want to honestly say like for the last year, but every time we did, we kind of, it's not a bad thing, but
we have little kids. Kids, man, they ruin everything.
It's different. Although I enjoy giving experiences and new things to the kids, it still doesn't, it's still a completely different going on a vacation alone.
It's not a vacation, guys. Let's just be honest. When you take your kids, it's not a vacation. It's an experience.
Yeah.
Whether that's a good or bad experience. I want to sit on the beach, and I don't know if I'm going to drink because I actually have stopped drinking wine.
But we talked about that.
It's temporary. And just sit on the beach and do nothing and think about nothing and read a book about nothing. And when you take your kids, they're like, Mom, I'm bored. There's no internet. Like
The food's not good.
I don't like the food. We wanted to treat ourselves for this, working hard, but we didn't book anything, and so we couldn't get out of it. We're still stuck in this habit that we created from the last 2 weeks. And so I said, okay, you know what, Chris, we're just going to keep working heads down and get even more done. And we have to leave on Tuesday for Tampa for an event. And I said, that will break the cycle. Like, let it break the cycle. So let's just keep working.
Yeah.
So we'll be probably said and done like 3 weeks of almost 300 hours of like nonstop work. But oh my God, are we getting some stuff done?
I'm talking like 5:30 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tammy says, I never think to reward myself and I end up just vegging out at the end of it. But Tammy, that's good insight, because I think that we have to remove ourself from our home. Because if you're a mom, like you're anchored, your thought process is anchored to that house, whether it's like the laundry, the dishes, cleaning, picking up the kids. I won't even look in my kids' room, although Chris makes sure that they clean it, because I'll flip out on them. So I think we have to remove ourselves. Like, we wanted to reward ourselves this Monday. We were supposed to stop working and say, let's treat ourselves. We were going to go on a staycation to Margaritaville here in Fort Myers, but it was too cold. So we just said, well, let's just keep working.
Yep.
And so we were like, let's do the next thing. And we noticed on Tuesday, we just said, well, let's keep working. And so we've worked through the whole week, day and night, still getting up, pounding away at getting stuff done, getting the new software done, like getting processes and automations and systems built and like organize it that we've been waiting for, and Woot Recruit, and launching a whole new course for Woot Recruit customers, hiring course. But I'm like, I'm having so much fun, but I'm tired.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Tired.
So if this feels like you, like, do you get yourself in this rut, like of I'm working hard and now I can't break the cycle. I can't break it. And book yourself a trip to St. John's to break it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but you said that is well, the vegging out thing. Totally get that, but then you feel guilty afterwards, or you feel unsatisfied, or there's something missing, and you're like, now you feel even worse because you're tired and you felt like you didn't really do anything rewarding or accomplish something after the fact. And then you're just kind of like, well, shoot, now I got to go back into it again.
Yeah. So Tammy, there's this book, and I try not to give people like more work to do. I'll drop the link in the chat. But it's called, so Jonathan Potoshnik, one of my amazing favorite, I'll drop the link.
Okay.
In the, amazing favorite mentors I ever had in my entire life. And Jonathan, you need to come back and mentor us again. He retired. He was one of the only people I've ever known to own a home service company and a software. Like, he's just absolutely amazing. So he recommended this book to the group, and it's called The Power of Full Engagement. And Tammy, this will really resonate with you and anyone who's feeling burnt out. And they talk to, and I want to start using this term more, is, you know, in the book they call it a corporate athlete, but we're not corporate. We're entrepreneur athletes. So I want to name it like how people take the word intra and put another word behind it? Like, wait, Choctawpreneurs. So I'm Choctaw, I'm Native American. And so there's a Native American Choctaw business segment, and they call us Choctawpreneurs. Choctawpreneurs.
Yeah.
So they talk about corporate athletes. So we can call ourselves entrepreneur athletes, right? Business athletes. And they talk about, this is where I learned a lot about managing energy and not time. They talk about looking at your work style like interval exercising. So we know that interval exercising is really great for us because it makes us exhaust or speed up our heart rate intentionally for a short time, and then we have to rest. And then we speed up, and then we do it again. And then every time we do this, we're building up the capacity of how long we can raise our heart rate for. And they talk about this like mindset around running your business or managing people or projects. Because again, they call it corporate athletes. and that typically especially in the United States, we're working in states of exhaustion. Like we don't take proper vacations, where in like Europe, they go on vacation for like a month. And we don't take proper vacations. So they talk about this in learning, and I have learned this in this last 2 weeks to like another level.
Yeah.
Like I understood it before, but these last 2 weeks I learned it to another level. Almost 3 weeks. Monday will be 3. Is pushing yourself to the point of exhaustion. Like, how much can I work? It's like the Elon Musk working 120 hours to get SpaceX like ready to catch the rocket with the chopsticks. So how far can you push yourself? And when you feel yourself being pushed to the point of breaking, stop and rest. And I think it is really insightful because we see athletes do this. We see some movie stars do this. We see some really big, like high-powered people do this. Like if you follow Dan Martell, you see them do this. They don't talk about it, but they play hard and they party hard, right? And I don't mean like drinking or drugs. I mean like party hard as in like they go away. They go to an island. They go to a beach. They go on a boat. They don't just stay in their house and like consider that rest.
Yeah.
And the book is really insightful because we need to listen to ourselves when it comes to running and managing businesses. It's like, where is my breaking point? I think we operate past it. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're irritable, we're miserable, we're micromanaging, we're not the greatest bosses, we're not operating in our unique ability, we're not. And this is something we do in our couples meetings to call each other out, but we're not operating from our inner scorecard and our inner values, right? Because we're not ourself. We're burnt out. We're overworked and we're tired. But what we're not doing is stopping to realize that's my breaking point. I hit my breaking point. Probably my employees probably felt that breaking point because I was short with them and I was distant.
Yeah.
I've learned to control my emotions. But they could probably tell because I was short and distant. I was trying to get the project done. And I worked through that breaking point. So now it's time to like stop and rest. But what's proper rest, right? Rest looks like different to everybody. Mm-hmm. But Tammy, I tried to do it in the house on that Monday saying, okay, we're done. Let's rest. And my computer's just staring at me. Like my computer's just staring at me. Like I see you. And so is my phone. And like, I'm trying not to like look at my phone and I have but it's still there. And so it's not proper rest. It's not. Yeah.
I think that's why I like climbing, because literally you have two hands and they both got to be on the rope or they're on the wall. And so it's an easy way to separate from, again, the distractions.
Yeah.
So honestly, that's where I'm headed here. I should be.
Today or tomorrow, probably.
Yeah. But yeah.
Tammy said, I get there too often. So Tammy, I think it's fresh in my mind because I hit like a new breaking point in these last 2 weeks of trying to get stuff done and exhaustion. And like I said, if you saw me on a live, I look like somebody like rode me hard and put me away wet. I was like looking like death with like a hoodie on and jogging pants for like 2 weeks straight. And if you saw a reel, it was probably like a past reel of where I was like made up. But what is there? What is your there? Like you said, I get there too often. What is there? Like, I don't need you to answer me what is there. I'm asking for everyone to think, what is my there?
It's very subjective.
What is my there? Like, what's there that I get there too often? There is the breaking point.
We're going to get there and then stop.
But what's there? Because like in business, you should see me right now, dude. If you could see my Trello boards, my computers, we use Trello for project management. If you could see the wall behind this camera and the amount of drawings I wasn't trying to move it. The amount of drawings I have on the walls, I use the giant sticky notes, the giant ones. I'm going to stop talking with my hands. I'll sit on my hands. The giant sticky notes that, they never end. Even when you get it done, there's another piece. It breaks, something happens. Automations don't work. Automations lose their mind. But what's your there? You have to think about like what's your there. I told Chris going forward, I'm confident that I don't need to necessarily have my there be like a finished project. My there needs to be a date. Like on this date, we are now stopping and resting, but I will work hard. It's a sprint. So we started to do sprints in the companies, and a sprint is like a 2-week run. Fast and hard, stop, assess how to go, what worked, what didn't. Some of this stuff will also be in the book and the new framework that we're rolling out for 1LD, the coaching program. At the end of the sprint, you have to have a date and a definitive stop, because as the owner, you'll work hard. You'll get down and like grind it out. And because there's no definitive end date, end to a project. In reality, there is no end to a project. You can tweak it and tweak it and tweak it and tweak it to death. Yesterday, I did a live on, are you tinkering with your business or are you growing your business and scaling it? I think we get in the tinker mode, and that's like shiny objects. Let me buy this and let me do that and let me rearrange the schedule 500 times. Because you could tinker a project to death and there's no end date. So my there is a date.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot to say about that recently, because in software there's a term called minimum viable product, and this is something that more so with development that really defines what a product needs, where a product needs to be in order to, again, be suitable to either work or sell or whatever. But the term minimum viable product is something that I think is easier to relate to the 80-20 rule of what is good enough. Not that it's a bad thing, but if you shoot for done, then done is never going to happen because there's always going to be something to improve on. So what I've been doing lately and recently, and this goes back into another kind of mindset and framework that I live by, it's finding that minimum viable product in anything that I do to make sure that that I can hit it subjectively and I can pull away.
Yeah, and so I know there's a ton of cleaning business owners on here. This is not a term that we use in cleaning. This is a great term. This is what we live by now. Minimum viable product. That's even if you're doing a project, revamping sales, revamping your customer success, revamping a role, a pay scale, anything. What's the minimum viable product? How can I call this done so that you can do then now what Chris is going to describe, which is stepping away?
Yeah. And so in order to do this and to put it into actual real use, to practical use, because, I mean, if you just say the words minimum viable product, it's like, what is that? But a simple way, let's say for a basic, let's say a cleaning company or just a home service business, is how do you apply this to you? 2 phrases you need to repeat to yourself whenever you do anything is, number 1, what needs to be true for me to call this done? Or what needs to be true for this to happen? And secondly is, and many of you have probably heard this if you've done any onboarding with us, and this is something that the framework that I use in practice, is what can we do after the fact? By defining these 2 things of the minimum viable product, what needs to be true as an absolute certainty, and then what can be done later, it starts to open up that 80-20 where you can hit that threshold and then pull off and still feel comfortable with yourself because you've accomplished the done, which is the 80%. It's the what needs to be true, and you feel satisfied inside.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great, and here's the other thing that we do. We run to a project and we try to like nail it out till it's completed. And what does that mean? What does that look like? And then we never touch it again. And typically the first ideation of it is not great. And so by doing what's the minimum viable product, what's good enough, what's the 80-20, what's the 80, right? You can then step away from that sprint, that 2 weeks, step away and let it work, like watch it run. And then you come back and say, okay, what didn't work? What's broken? What do we need to adjust? Or, you know what, this was horrible. Let's scrap it and start over. That happens. And you didn't spend like 100% of the time on it like you would have if you were trying to get it done to completion. So I think this is really, really, really insightful for home service business owners. We don't use this phrase. We don't even use this thought process. We're just trying to get a project done. And it's so subjective of what done looks like.
Yeah. And that's honestly, that for me has been the saving grace. Before I started to implement that, before I started to practice and use those phrases, my world was a complete disaster. This was coming into meetings, coming out of meetings. I swear to you, I repeat this every single conversation that I have, even with the kids, is what needs to be true for you to feel comfortable with X, Y, Z. What needs to be true for this to happen.
So I want you guys to ask yourself that question, and you're going to realize when you start this, you have no clue what needs to be true. You don't even know. You're like, oh, like, I don't know, like what does need to be true? And it makes you think to a different level to say, actually, it's not as difficult as I thought, or it actually creates some simplicity in the thought process of when you're trying to do something like rebuild your marketing or revamp sales, or recreate your training. What needs to be true is a really, really good and insightful question to ask yourself, because you're going to, and this is why projects take forever and there's no end date and we don't get them done, because we didn't stop to say what needs to be true. And then you're like, oh, well, this is actually pretty simple. Versus if you don't ask yourself that question, you go to overthink mode, like overcomplicate mode, overdo it mode. And then all of a sudden you've created this project that is 100 times larger or more complicated than it needed to be.
Yeah. I think that's also, where some people might struggle with operating systems. I'm going to just say, like with the EOS, sometimes there is clearly defined rocks, but at the same time, it's still a level of subjectivity. It's hard to nail that in, but again, those two phrases there have been my saving grace. It goes into my calendars. It goes into the things, again, like I said, it's like a threshold. As soon as I'm coming into a meeting or as soon as I come out, this is something that just word vomit out of my mouth. It happens naturally now because I've made it a habit. And it's saved me so many times over.
And this is a great phrase for your kids, because our 16-year-old Austin will like try to, and when I say argue something, or he doesn't argue, he's very respectful. He's just very, very competitive, hard-headed. I wonder where he gets it from. Or if he's trying to like prove a point or do something, Chris will ask him, so what needs to be true? And he'll be like, and then all of a sudden he ain't got nothing to say.
He's like, actually, I'm good.
I'm good. And so it's a really great phrase to use with your children as well, your employees, your leadership, your management. And if they don't know what needs to be true, say, hey, no problem. When you figure that out, feel free to come back. So it's a great phrase. It makes you unlock a different side of thinking. So I see Amy on here. Hey, Amy, she said, are you following me? Are you watching me? Amy, I'm not, but because we all are going through the same thing, and sometimes it feels like we're alone or we're losing our minds, but in reality, we're going through the same thing, just like everybody else. Just it's different levels, but at the same time, it's the same thing. It doesn't really change, no matter how large you get, no matter how companies you have, no matter how many employees you have or you don't have. It's almost the same thing. It's business is nothing but cycles.
Yeah.
And it's the same cycle, like over and over and over. And I think that's also, though, what creates us to be stronger because it's the cycle and it keeps coming back. And we learn every time it comes back how to approach it differently. And we're building that muscle of how to handle strength and how to become fearless.
And same cycle, different environment.
Same cycle, different environment.
Yeah.
And then Tammy said she should evaluate that. She usually gets caught in the whirlwind and never really paid attention to what that straw that breaks is truly. Those are really great insight, Tammy. And listen to yourself. I think over the last year, I've spent a tremendous amount of time and money, like trying, I'm going to stop talking with my hands, trying to understand myself. Because I realized my business wasn't broken. I didn't have bad people. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to even understand my thoughts or communicate my thoughts. And I think we don't do enough of listening to ourselves, like inner work, breath work, mindset work. One of the things that me and Chris, I'm not political at all. That, we notice about Elon Musk. What do you think one of the biggest traits is? What do you think his key trait is that he has that makes him so successful? I would love for people to put that in the chat if you're watching. Like, what do you think it is? We
I think we've pinned it.
We've pinned it. And I'm trying to really keep that front of mind.
Yeah.
But we've pinned it. Why do you think he can have SpaceX and Tesla and whatever the heck else he's doing? I don't watch a lot of, even though I'm on social media, I don't watch a lot of social media. So, like, what is it? Chris, tell them what it is.
Well, I sometimes overcomplicate it, so I'll let you say it.
His ability to communicate clearly.
There you go, because I couldn't do that.
Is his unique ability. It's his ability to communicate clearly and unbiasedly. Is that a word? Is that a phrase?
No.
No.
It is now.
It is now. Like, even when you saw him campaign, like, who cares who you voted for? Who cares if you drive a Tesla? When you saw him communicate, he has the ability to communicate at a high, clear level without bias or emotion.
Extreme clarity.
I'm talking extreme clarity. And then I feel like we're like, small business owners get into trouble or we struggle is we don't know how to do that. Like, we let our emotions, because our business is our baby. Like, we carried it for 9 months and we birthed it and we nursed it and we fed it and we've raised it. And we're so biased to our business. We're so protective to it and that we cannot communicate clearly and without bias. We can't. When we were in the meeting and one of our employees said that people were scared of me and that a phrase was said to me like, well, you're a millionaire. You own $1 million business. I'm like, I was going to die. I was like, going to lose it. And then I was like, okay. Thank you for that insight. The old Libby would have been like, look, and just kind of let my emotions take over the meeting. But that is the way they thought. And that is the way I was communicating to them. And I had to take a step back and kind of assess myself. But I thought, I was like, I am too protected. Like, I am so biased about the company. I'm so biased about my feelings and my thoughts about our company. Right? Instead of saying, are we as good as we think we are? I said, no, I don't think we are as good as we think we are. Like, we need to be real and assess, like, how good is our customer service? How good is our cleaning? Like, how good is our quality? How good is our software?
Yeah.
And talk about it in an unbiased, honest, and open way. And then the employees didn't like that because they were like, well, no, we're great. And I'm like, wait a minute, you guys are great. But let's talk about, like, are we really as good as we think we are? Because we're biased. And I saw that in like watching videos and listening to him, it wasn't what he was saying. It was how he communicated in the most neutral but open and honest way.
The best way I can explain this also is that, and think about this in the way that you talk as well, is every single word that came out of his mouth was intentional. There was no backtracking. There was no
Storytelling.
right, and there was no redirecting in terms of the output that was expected from the words that came out of his mouth.
No storytelling, right? And also no blame.
Yeah, it's amazing if you watch him talk through a conversation.
And hardly anybody's mad at the guy. Like, okay, politics aside, like, you're just kind of like, oh, well, that made a lot of sense. Like what he just said, you're kind of like,
I can't
oh.
really be upset. I mean,
And, Erica Turner said, I struggle with clear communicating so much. And I think this is our small business struggle.
Yeah.
And what the difference I see in like successful people that I've hired for mentors, that we talk about and that we follow, and then looking at someone like Elon Musk, how can he do these things? And to be honest, I don't think like people are inherently bad employees. They don't come to not do their job, right?
Right.
But because he can communicate so clearly, like with his staff and what he wants and what the outcome is supposed to be, with an unbiased, unemotional, right, strategy, he can get so much stuff done because people are doing it for him, right? We all have employees, but like Erica said, she has trouble communicating. I'm going to not lie. I'm struggling right now with something. Keep going. I'll tell you my struggle in a second. I'll leave you suspense.
My brain is like, I got a ton of things, but it boils down to how pure his vision is. And I want to circle back to asking you guys that. If you have difficulties communicating, think to yourself, how pure is the goal or how pure is the vision? Because if it was in fact pure, then there wouldn't be any wavering in conversation, in communication, because that would be the sole focus. That would be the pure thing that you do or speak about or execute on to the fullest degree.
I agree. And so this is where we're going now, because that's what I did.
Yeah.
So I was struggling for the last few months. So I have Marilyn. She's my amazing assistant. And she helps me with everything. So if you email me, she's going to see it. If you Facebook message me, she's going to see it. We had hired a head of marketing in one of the companies that came in, and she was so sweet. She was a great core value fit. Like, we loved her. But she was struggling with like confidence in the job. And everyone in the marketing team, which I was in there because I was heading marketing and I hired her to take my place. Marilyn was in there because she follows me everywhere and helps me stay on track. And then the other marketing members, that we have a tech person and we have a video person, and they were all in there, and they were saying how much they loved her and that they love her much better than the way I was doing things.
They didn't say specifically those words.
Specifically those words, but I'm sitting in there and I'm like, well, crap. Like that's not like, and I felt like my feelings got hurt. And they didn't say those words. They're like, oh, we love the structure. We love how now we know what we're doing. Because, if you're working for the entrepreneur, you wake up and every day looks different. We're like, we're going to do a webinar tonight. So it kind of hurt me, right? I took it bias. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to recommunicate it. And I did tell Marilyn, I said, you know what? I have not been giving you anything to do. I've just been doing the stuff myself because I kind of like just said, oh, I don't want to bother her. She didn't like when I was doing things, mm-hmm. But she never said that. I took it like I took it from a place of emotion and bias because I was sitting in that seat and it's my company, and everything you said to me hurt my feelings. But then there's no feelings in business. No, business doesn't have feelings. Business does not care if you're sick, if you're pregnant, if you're nursing, if you're going through a divorce. It doesn't care. I know that because I've been through all those things. Yeah. It doesn't care. It is a brutal thing. that will take you to your limits and push you as hard as it can till the breaking point. And it is times of like happiness and sadness, but also there is this space of joy and like reward and legacy that you're building. But so going back to my story of like telling Marilyn, like, I don't want to ask her to help me because she wants things structured, like she wants it planned out. And I get an idea and I just want to do it. Like, just let's do it.
Yeah.
And so I told her, I said, you know what? I have not been asking you for help because she's like, I have time. Like, you know, is there anything you need? And I'm like, no. And so I took it that way. So to Chris's point, is your vision clear? So over the last...
Not clear, but pure.
Pure. Is your vision pure? And detailed. So I've been rewriting all of them and I'm actually happy to show everybody. I could do a live on the new business structure, the structure of Libby DeLucian LLC, the vivid visions of 4 companies. And what really helped me just get a much clearer mindset was, what am I selling? What are we selling? I redid the core values so that every company had the same core values because I own all of them. And they were different core values. And I'm like, this is craziness. But I redid the core values so they're true to me and who we hire and fire and promote and off those things. But what I also did was I wrote down, like, my vision is pure, but also like, what am I selling to people? What is the purpose of Organize It? Is it just cleaning houses? It's not. And what's the purpose of Woot Recruit? Is it just getting people in your door? It's not. And so when sell, convert, clean, like the new software, you know what we're selling in that? We're selling confidence. Confidence to quote the job consistently every time. And so when I sat down and I wrote these, they're pure, like what we're doing is so pure and so intentional. It broke that emotional state that I was in of saying, oh, I don't want to ask them for help. I don't want to ask them for anything because, and you know, the head of marketing that we had, we let her go a few months ago and I'm back in there. So that's been over for a while. But that was like my story of no matter in our business, whether we're communicating it or receiving it, we're taking it from a place of emotion and bias. And that is the thing I see. Elon Musk's superpower. Yeah, we have a bunch of comments in here. Libby said, would you each say, is there one thing that turned you into focused machines to get to your done? It's the vision. It's the pure vision and clarity of what we're trying to achieve, to me. And also, Amy, here's the other thing. It's also knowing what I don't want. Like, I don't want this. I don't want a single location, $4 million cleaning company. I don't even want a single location, $3 million cleaning company.
I think that's
I don't want that. And so like knowing what I don't want, but also like nailing down the vision. The vision is like, why are we doing this? When I sat down to make the new vision for Libby DeLucian as an ecosystem specifically for cleaning, I am creating an ecosystem to help you with different facets of your business of cleaning. When I said, oh my God, like this is a cleaning movement, all of a sudden the energy I have. Last night it was midnight. And I was with Chris, I said, is it sad that I want to go to sleep so I can wake up so I can do more work?
Yeah, I'm excited too.
Like, let's go to sleep so I can wake up and do more work and drink coffee. And it's crazy. Like when you get the vision, it's so pure and so aligned that like you eliminate, Amy, all distractions. Like I got myself off of Voxer. So like, sadly, I'm missing like the coaches threads, the elite comments. Some of my friends were on there. I had to get rid of distractions because now my mission is so pure. And I got rid of Voxer like a year ago. I started this journey about a year ago. And so like I've eliminated, I dropped out of certain things and only kept the ones that were contributing to my vision, right? So I've dropped out of a couple networking groups, of mentorship groups, of free stuff. Like, cause if all we're doing is joining calls all day long, I can't get to my vision. Like I can't get there. And so I've had to learn like mastery of how do I work, so how I can get things done. Because I was in this cycle of like trying to join every call, like having FOMO of, oh, there's a call here and there's a call there and there's this and there's that. And there's like, no, what is going to get me to the vision?
And that's where I was going to come back to. I think it's true, especially Amy, you were asking that question and we clued into it. If you were to ask yourself in the opposite, what needs to be true for me to get rid of the things I don't want or that are causing me stress? What needs to be true to eliminate the negatives? And then go through each one individually and ask that statement and then identify that thing that needs to be true. That would be that clear marker. And then you write that thing down. And then that now becomes your absolute goal.
Yeah, Amy, I feel you. When I practiced EOS, I hated like, what does done look like? Like, what is done? Like, oh, here's a rock. And you're like, make a customer service program.
And cascading.
And you're like, well, that could be giant. Like, what's a customer service program? Is it automated? Is it manual? Like, what are like, just not the steps, but then the verbiage and who's doing it. And then you got to put it in your CRM. And if your CRM doesn't do it, then you got to buy another software. And then you're just like, oh my God. So I think one of the things that I self-sabotaged in, and so did Chris, when it came to what is your, like, done is, you don't get there. It says, my done never seems to come. Is be true with yourself. Don't self-sabotage, right? Don't overcommit. If we're like many women, just gonna say this right now, especially cleaning business owners, I want you to think about this. We self-sabotage because we overcommit, because we are inherently nurturing. Like, we're trying to please. It's a trait of women. It's a superpower, but also your kryptonite. And then in cleaning, we got into cleaning because we want to help. We want to nurture. We want to please people. And so what does your done look like? One of the things that I made a lot of mistakes on was I did not clearly define what done was. Done can be any stage. Done isn't a customer success program. That is not done. That would take a year to do correctly.
Yeah.
Done is a customer service program's sequence and verbiage. Done. That's it. Then that's your minimum viable product. Like, what is that? Who's doing it? Great. Then it's the next phase of, okay, now we have this, the verbiage is working. Now, do we want to automate it? Do we want to put it in our CRM? Like, done to us we're overthinking done. Our done is too large. So that's why I didn't like rocks. It's 90 days. It's too long. I get distracted. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go play over here. Like, so that's why we decided to do 2-week sprints of.
Which is more of a practice in software, again, because it evolves so quickly.
Mm-hmm. And so done, Amy, could just be create the cadence. How often do I want to touch out? Okay, that's done. Mini reward. Then come back to it and say, okay, now maybe I'm going to create the verbiage. Maybe if you can't do the verbiage and the cadence at the same time, break them up. But then it moves along, because also, like, you're going to find that you're going to be working on things that become irrelevant.
Yeah, I love that.
Like, irrelevant. You're like,
all 13 of these to-dos ended up not being relevant.
That sucked. Like, I just made this and we don't even need it now. So you're going to realize that it also could become irrelevant. It could become unnecessary, or by fixing something else, it fixed this. So I think your done can be controlled, but we want to overdo it. We want to overcommit. We want to finish it. And software taught me this, is that there is no done to a product in software. It's never done. I mean, it's never done. Right now, I'm watching the tech team build out the new software that we're getting ready to release. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. Like, I don't even know, because we don't know the code that it was built on. So, because I bought the code from like the other partner, and then I bought him out, and I'm just going like, and now I know like why software is never done. That project's never done. And so let's see, like Faith said, yes, what you don't want will push you. It will, Faith, because for the longest time, Faith, I didn't know how to write my vision, but I knew what I didn't want. Mm-hmm. So watch the people around you, watch your mentors. You know, I watched Debbie, and I watched Paul Fasthauer, and I've watched Molly and Jamie. They're my friends. Like, I love them, but I watch what they're doing, and I said, you know, they have great businesses. And just because I don't want something they have is not bad. It's actually a learning lesson. Like, hey, you know what? I don't want that, but I do love this.
So I want to go more so to a psychological part, which is, you know, how we're built is that fear is so much more of a stronger emotion than happiness. And the reason for that is because, again, think about it. Back in the day, is you either ran or you died. You know, if there was a lion or something that was there and they scratched you, it was again, you got hurt. There's fear in there. It burns into your brain so that you never forget that experience again. So the stronger the fear, the more you remember, or in this case, the more that it's ingrained into your habits. And that's why we have so many self-sabotaging moments, because the fear has overridden the kind of the positive side. Mm-hmm. And so fear is an extremely strong emotion. And so if you think about it in that way, is instead of saying what I want, because that can be a little bit softer, is what I don't want can invoke that fear and drive you to actually get something done where maybe you were failing at it before.
Yeah. And for all of our listeners, man, we do our couples quarterly, and we work on self-sabotaging. I was just reading Heather, and she says, I am a shiny object chaser. It's self-sabotaging. Like, you don't know these, like, you don't realize you're self-sabotaging because you're running on an emotional high. So let's, like, you watch a webinar, you watch a training, and it's like this, and that's our job. So I do webinars, and I sell software online, and I do training, and I stopped doing webinars. And I stopped doing them just because I didn't want to do them. I didn't like it. It wasn't my thing. I'd rather just give free training and attract people through values. But you're running on an emotional high at that time. Like when you go to a conference and you're on that webinar and you want to buy it because you think it's the solution. And there's self-sabotaging tendencies within us that once you do the exercise, it will change the way you look at yourself. Like, it changes everything about how you perceive yourself. I'm trying to get my self-sabotaging questions up. It changes everything about you, and you start to, because Chris points them out to me. He's like, hey, don't do that. Oh, you said that. You said you weren't going to say that. Mm-hmm. And I've stopped. I have stopped self-sabotaging, and I felt myself get tons more momentum.
And so I'll even lean into this too, in terms of, again, couples quarterly and self-sabotage, and going through that exercise together with that open accountability. I've actually created bumpers around my world to help lean into Libby's self-sabotaging moment. So I actually have an 11 o'clock alarm every single day that says protect Libby at all costs.
Yeah, and so does Marilyn. Like, Marilyn gets the update. Like, they're like, shields up.
Yeah, and 11:30 on Mondays, I have one that is push Libby.
Yeah.
And what that is for her, the other self-sabotaging moment, which is I'm not ready, or we're not just there yet.
Yeah, so I self-sabotage a lot. Chris, so I help him because he self-sabotages. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, hey, you said you weren't going to do that. And then, because I said I need people in my life to push me, I've always had it. We talked about my ex the other day in our couples quarterly. He pushed me a lot. Well, he also physically pushed me, but he pushed me a lot to grow. It was a very weird and sick relationship at times because he would push me to be better and bigger, but then he would knock me down at the same time. And so I grew very fast and very influential in the industry I was in at that time because he pushed me. I loved being in like the Dan Martell group because having access to Dan one-on-one, he'll push you, like he'll call you on, he will cuss you out, call you out, like you name it. And he'll be like, show me your computer screen. Like if you asked a question or made an excuse, and you're like, okay, I'm sorry, I won't ask again. But I need that to push me because I keep telling myself, oh, I'm not ready. Oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I say that phrase, oh, I'm not ready yet. And so he, every Monday, pushed me. But then the other one is protect me because it's going to sound like a funny self-sabotaging, but I am committed to my commitments. So we're so strongly that it is like debilitating.
I think the words were that you stick too strongly to your morals.
I stick too strongly to my morals, which sounds weird. And no one's trying to get me to like do anything bad, but I stick so strongly to my morals that I inconvenience or hurt myself. And that's where he has to help protect me because I will hurt myself. I'll overwork myself. I'll inconvenience myself because I'm so true to my morals. Again, it comes from my past and past trauma.
And I would say that, again, fear is the biggest motivator. Is you were so scared to break your morals or not live by them that you obsessed over them.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so funny because I had a conversation with Debbie Sardone that was back a year ago, and she's like, I kind of I was worried about you. I didn't know. She's like, but man, you are like faithful and committed. And I said, yep. She goes, but you're so fast. Like I was just worried. I didn't know like where you were going, like what you were doing. And she goes, but I can trust you 100%. And it is, and she can. And I'm so committed to almost like self-neglecting. So here's some questions, and this has to do with your vision, self-sabotaging, shiny object syndrome, what's your done look like. It has to do with burnout. Here's a few questions to ask yourself. And Amy, I'm going to read some of your comments because I want to address the one that says, oh, I'm watching you and oftentimes it feels defeating. And I'm going to get into the questions first, but I want to address that because it happens at every level. It's a cycle. But here are the questions to help ask yourself or your spouse if you want to go through self-sabotaging exercises. And I did an exercise on this for Service Autopilot actually last year, and I could always bring it back. It says, so here are the questions. How do you recognize it as soon as it happens? How do you recognize it? He helps me recognize it. Sometimes you don't see it until it's pointed out.
Oh, mine, I was oblivious to.
He was oblivious. And then once they were pointed out, so you have to ask for some help, maybe your spouse, maybe a sibling, or even your mom. Ask them some questions to help figure out, like, how do you keep self-sabotaging? And then what can we do to make overwriting this a part of the daily practice? Right? How can I overwrite this? Again, alarms on your phone. I have the word "I'm not ready" in a couple places so that I'm aware of it the second I say it. And then now I'll say it and I'll stop. I'm
gonna get her.
I stopped saying it.
I'm gonna get her a SpongeBob keychain to put. I'm
not ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. And then how can I be self-aware when I do these things? How can I be self-aware? They happen at the same time, guys. They always happen at the same time, like the self-sabotaging. Mm-hmm. So they may happen while you're in a webinar. They may happen while you're at a conference. Know that this is when you react this way and start to coach yourself. Oh, you know what? I don't need anything right now. I already bought blah, 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 and I need to implement it. Like, I'm already in this group. I don't have time for another one. Know when it happens. They happen at the same time.
Know what environments trigger it so you can be on watch, and you'll find that you can see it much easier.
Yes.
Over time, you're going to learn specific triggers or specific, like literally walking in a door where you know that people are going to be. If there's a self-sabotaging moment that has to do with people, know that as soon as you walk in the door, you're about to catch that override.
I did a coaching call with somebody yesterday, and she goes, oh my God, I buy stuff every time I go to a conference, and I buy something from all the vendors that are there. And I said, okay, well, the next time you go, you have to have like morals and what trumps what, like those decision-making frameworks. Like, so I said, you know what? So this time you're going to buy nothing. You're not allowed to buy a single thing. And if you do, you have to answer to me. And I'm going to ask you why. And you have to sit on it for a week and think about, do I really need it? And by the time that week comes, if that's still in your head, then it's probably something that you did need. And you're not operating from a place of emotion or high, like an endorphin high or adrenaline high. The next question is, what was I thinking the moment I self-sabotaged? It's a very good question. What was I thinking? Like, I found that at times when I would say I'm not ready, I wasn't thinking at all. It was a complete reaction because I had gotten so used to saying, I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
So I will say that this question alone is going to be very hard if you don't dig deep. If you just give a surface level answer to yourself, it will stay surface level and you will not be able to break through it.
No.
What I've found is that in sitting through it and going through this exercise, you actually have to have a dialogue. You actually have to have a conversation either with yourself, hopefully somebody else, and talk through it as much as possible, because it's going to be something that's under something that's under something that is the trigger. And you're not going to find it if you just give yourself a 5-word answer within the minute that you ask yourself that question.
Yeah. An example of that is, I saw a question online about like, what are your things holding you back from like growing in 2025? And I saw somebody answer nothing. I'm like, that is not a true answer. Every single person has something that's holding them back. And you cannot do the self-sabotaging exercise if you're not willing to be vulnerable with yourself. You don't have to do it with nobody. Like, you can do it by yourself. But you're not going to get through this phase of your life and entrepreneurship and business until you figure out these self-sabotaging tendencies. The next question is, what was happening in the moment? Right? Now where is it happening? Mm-hmm. Like at the conference. But Amy said the show special. You know, Amy, I think I've gotten to the point in my life where I'd rather pay full price if I truly need it than to buy cheap stuff. Again, I'm shooting myself in the foot because I'm a vendor, and I actually stopped doing show specials. I don't even have show specials no more.
But we're gonna have a great special.
Because of that reason, though, Amy, I saw that doing like CBF and ISSA and Service Autopilot Conference, other conferences, show specials, and this is probably true with your cleaning specials. Those customers have the highest amount of churn. They churn out. They were buying on an emotional high. So I would rather pay full price and know that I need it versus the show special. And I know you were joking, but so what was happening in the moment? In the moment, what was happening? And then the last question is, what are the things I could have told myself in the moment? What could I have told myself? And that's when I said, if you know this happens when you go to Ross and you're like, but the dress was only $8 and it was on clearance. You know how many times I ran into that organizing people's houses? But you're on an emotional high. You don't need it. What can I tell myself in that moment? Because it's all about self-coaching, talking. I talk to myself all the time. And everybody goes, well, as long as you don't answer yourself, it's okay. And I said, well, I answer myself too. So what could I have told myself in that moment? And so an example is, I turned down like something and all my friends were signing up for it, all of them. And I had FOMO and I wanted to do it. I was like, but I want to do it. And they all signed up and they're like, let's create a chat. And I'm like, fine. Like I'm not, and as friends, you should watch this too, friends. And I was like, I'm talking to myself. I said, Libby, like you don't have enough time. You're already busy. You've already paid for something like this. Do you really need it? And are you actually going to do it? Like, what does your day look like right now? Like, what does your day to day, week to week look like right now? Do you have time to travel again, watch more modules and implement? And I said to myself, I don't. I need to focus and stay focused. And so I didn't buy it. But I'm not going to lie. I did feel left out and I did have FOMO. But talking myself through like my reality of my day to day and having kids and wanting to focus on my business and what we were already doing, it helped me not feel so bad. The other thing I have to do, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, and you may, people may not like you for this, is that I have to remove myself. And so I may like get up and leave the room, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, remove myself from the table if we're eating lunch or dinner. And it's not out of rudeness and I'm not walking away mad. I'm removing myself so I don't feel bad. So my feelings don't start to take over and I buy on an emotional high.
And so I want to share, for me, one of my self-sabotaging tendencies, which I'm working through, and I feel confident that I've worked really, really strongly through it. But for me, it was the entire opposite, which was stepping away from situations or stepping away from things, because one of my biggest self-sabotaging tendencies was that I was too worried about what I thought other people thought about me. I've said this before, but it's not what they're actually thinking, but it was what I thought they were thinking. Have you ever seen Zoolander? Or no, it's a dodgeball. Anyway, but it's what I thought they were thinking. That was my biggest self-sabotaging moment, because then I started to get inside my own head, and whatever I was doing, my performance went down dramatically. I was full of anxiety. I started to make the wrong decisions because I was on an emotional high and I was not thinking clearly. And so a ton of things go into this, but with that self-sabotaging feeling of what are other people thinking about me, or what do I think about it? I actually had to step into the fire with a lot of things. And this is more of a disruptive way of doing things with the social aspect, is stepping into environments that you're uncomfortable with and embracing it.
So it's so interesting. I had to step out. I could give a crap what people think about me. I'm like, we're the total opposite on certain things. And he had to step into social environments.
Yeah. And so the reason I had to do that is because I needed to make sure that I could correct myself with thinking, with honestly just thinking, period. And so now I have an override where I don't think. It's more of I act. It's more so down to what we talked about with Elon Musk, is that pure focus, that pure intention of whatever it is that you have, like right now. And so it's all about leaning into the moment in the pure intent. There's a book I always reference, and honestly, this one I need to reread again, The Courage to be Disliked. It's kind of a narrative, but it's been really great. Oh, look at that. I actually triggered this thing.
Wow. The camera loves Chris.
But it's been really great to go through that exercise of what really matters. Like, what the hell? Like, what?
I got in trouble for the last live. I cussed too much, so Facebook gave me a warning. So that's why I'm being proper.
Okay. HE double hockey sticks.
I think you can say that word.
Okay. But the courage to be disliked, it's looking at it more in an altruistic way of leaning into something without feeling that anxiety. For me, that was the self-sabotaging moment. And just, leaning into it and saying yes to everything instead of pulling away and saying, I'm not sure, I don't know. But leaning into it, because if I say yes, or if I start to lean into that conversation, again, with my breathing exercises, I can start to control exactly what I'm thinking. And it becomes less stressful. So I think
Yeah.
it's kind of a roundabout way of saying it, but there's having to step away, but there's also having to lean into something.
Yeah, I have to step away. So those questions were great. Write them down. I can repeat them real fast. How can I recognize it as soon as it happens? What can we do to overwrite this part of the daily practice? How can I be self-aware when I do these things? At what was I thinking the moment I self-sabotaged? What was happening in that moment? And what are the things I could have told myself in the moment? So just to be, I'm going to read you my self-sabotaging, and I'll just read the high-level overview. So self-sacrifice is one. That's the overcommitting to almost, and I've gotten much better, but I have to have bumpers around that, because I will overcommit to my own detriment, to hurting my family or myself, as in like overpromising, overworking, overcommitting, holding so tight to my morals if I said I was going to do something, and always trying to be there. Again, you're a mom, you're inherently empathetic and a people pleaser. We are like, as direct as you could be. Any assessment in the world could tell you you're like a fact finder and a D and this and that. At the end of the day, it doesn't tell you about your feelings, and your feelings are what really, actually, our feelings are how we react to everything in our life.
It dictates your behavior.
Yeah. So self-sacrifice is one of my self-sabotaging, and self-defeating. This comes again from my past trauma, and it's, I'm not ready. I keep saying I'm not ready.
That was the trigger phrase.
That's a trigger phrase. So if you'll notice this, when me and Chris work through it, you have trigger phrases. Chris has a trigger phrase. Why did you do that?
Uh-huh.
Where's your trigger phrase come from? Say it and be honest.
No, it came from, because
I know
I had a broken relationship with my parents, because they were divorced at there was a lot of friction there, but it was, one is my mother's side, which was more so the Hispanic side of the family, and my sister, who is my youngest sister, who actually I think closely raised me. Like, I would call her a parent, because she's the one that raised me day to day. And so, kids, they only know what they know, but it was over sensationalized experiences is the best way to put this, is that, it was everything that I did, or everything around me, was over sensationalized, because either it was the Hispanic side of, oh my God, you're going to die. Or, again, just like, oh my gosh, why are you doing that? Ew. Or again, just little things like that stacked up and stacked up and stacked up. And at that time, again, if you ever see kids, be very, very careful with this, is that if you sensationalize an experience, there's a natural tendency to pull back. And if you sensationalize it and start to lean into that, they're going to pull back more and more and more. And then what's going to happen from there is that you then have this thing that can't escape, because it's so tightly balled up that there's no way to get around it unless you work through it yourself. It's like a string that gets tied up so bad that you have to sit there for hours to find out how to unravel it. It just won't loosen up in a few minutes.
So is that your only trigger word? Well, it was a couple, but it had to do around,
Yeah,
like, why did
I think that was one of the biggest trigger words.
Why did you do that? And we
Yeah.
didn't even realize these trigger words until we did this exercise. And now I know, when I would ask him, just like in business or in life, hey, Chris, why'd you do that? And he would like, "Da," and I'm like, oh my God, I was just asking. I'm so sorry. And I didn't know. And now that I know that, I don't say it. It starts to come out, and I stop myself. Oh, I'm like, hey, could you tell me what you were thinking when that happened?
Do you think that maybe
like rephrasing it? And I've also, in learning this, have learned not to say these phrases to our children in that way, right? So you all have trigger words that you self-sabotage with, or that set off the self-sabotaging. Trigger words, right? Mine was, I'm not ready. with the self-defeating, but the self-sacrificing didn't necessarily have a trigger word. It was more around my mindset and holding so tightly to my morals that I put everyone before me. Everyone.
Yeah.
So I wanted to recap on Amy's comment. She goes, I often watch you and sometimes it feels defeating. Amy, one thing that, I really learned, and God, I'm trying to think who really taught me this, is that, I'm only in a race with myself. I also think that, when you get that vision nailed down and where are you going? So let's just this is one reason why I do love the new year and I don't. Goals can set you up to fail. Goals sometimes are very surface. They're just numbers. If you're not setting them up right. If you're quickly going through like a goal setting. Oh, how large do I want the company to be? $4 million. And I want this much profit. And I want to take a vacation in Tahiti. And so I think that let's put the goals aside. And that's one reason I don't like the New Year's. I experienced this with organizing. People would set these unrealistic goals and they'd self-sabotage. And then they felt bad when they saw everybody else doing things. Oh, go ahead.
I also think that, and this is going to be probably what you're playing into, but most of the time, goals are set outside of ourselves. They're not actually things that we want, but they're things we're lying to ourselves about.
So I have a great story on that. I was at a roundtable mastermind group, and they were asking everyone to read their goals out loud. And we had just got hit by Hurricane Ian, and I didn't have a revenue goal. I said, I don't have a revenue goal. I'm focusing on stability and processes and systems. And later that night, I was at the bar, and one of the people in the mastermind group came up to me and they said, Libby, I want to thank you for being real. She had said, I had my goal down, and because everybody else's goal was bigger than my actual goal, I crossed it out and I put a bigger revenue goal because everybody else did. And I was kind of like, oh, no problem. I was happy that I could help her feel better. She goes, next time I'm going to be true to myself and write down my real goal. But thank you for being an example. But, I think that the goal sometimes self-sabotage, we're setting these giant revenue goals and we're embarrassed to not set a big goal. But how this self-defeating, or how can I do so much or go so fast or doing so many things, or I will say that when your vision is so clear on what you want to do, your vision is so clear, it ignites something in you that you've never seen before. And if you're not excited to wake up every morning, or excited to go to sleep so I can wake up and work more on that vision, you haven't nailed your vision yet.
And I want to catch you on this, because there's a difference between motivated to and fired up for. Because you're going to be motivated to, or want to get stuff done, and it's not actually your vision. It's not actually what you want. Again, like I said, majority of the time is those goals, those visions we're lying to ourselves about. And don't mistake motivation for actual intention of what you really want, because that will get you in hot water.
Yeah, it will. I redid, and for those who do have vivid visions or visions, you're supposed to review the vision every end of year to make sure it's still in line. I reviewed our vision, and I actually reduced the revenue goal in one of the companies. I reduced it because I knew what I didn't want, and I know what I want. And I can't build that company to the goal that was set, the revenue goal, the revenue vision, if I'm changing the way the world looks at cleaning. I can't. I have to be true to myself. Maybe I can't have a $10 million company if I want to work on my marriage at the same time, because it takes time. Everything takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about managing the energy that we have within the time, not managing the time.
Yes. And I would say that I'd like to also thank you. It was probably 2 years ago almost that
You're welcome.
you asked, what do I want out of life? Or what do you want 5 years from now? And for me, I was paralyzed because I couldn't answer that. And in the same respect, I was trying to think through it and work through this exercise. And I was like, again, my brain was it was not holding on to it, but I was like, I want to create my own company and I want to do X, Y, Z. But what ended up coming out of that was the real intention, the real drive behind it, which wasn't the motivation, because I was motivated to make it happen, but it wasn't something that really fired me up. It wasn't something that I felt excited or energized through. But it was honestly to help be there. It was to be there more and to take care of the family and be a great father, be a great husband. But my passion was to be there to take care of people and be there to support, not specifically to own a business or to be $1 million, $10 million business owner, whatever. That's not me. But I had to reason with myself and explain that and be like, okay, this is the real me. And I got to be okay with that because there was so much stigma around it. Especially being a guy, you had to be, the breadwinner.
Yeah, that's not in your vision anymore, is it?
No.
No, because he thought, to be honest, were you trying to keep up with me?
I was trying to keep up with you, and I felt like if I was to be successful, I had to do that. I had to do that.
So let's just be real for a minute, right? And I'm reading Amy's, and thank you, Amy, for being real. She said, I never set up an actual goal ever, not one with any purpose. That's powerful, Amy. Perhaps that's what I need to do, or where I need to start. When I asked him this 2 years ago, poor Chris, I drag him through all kinds of stuff. It's voluntary. I always ask him. But I had asked him about this, and we started to write visions. So I got into Vivid Vision about 3 years ago, big Cameron Herold fan. Vivid Vision is what broke up me and Paul from Woot Recruit, is we saw we didn't have the same vision. We didn't. Mm-hmm. And it was a beautiful breakup. We're still friends. Like it was our visions didn't align. And I'm so thankful that we did the exercise before the relationship went south, or could have went south. And when I asked Chris about this, what's your vision? What do you want from life? So Amy, what do you want from life? What do you want? I could care less if my cleaning company's 5 million or 4 million. I could really care less. I want a certain amount of money so I can live. I want a certain amount of freedom. I want to change the way people perceive cleaning and cleaning business owners and cleaners. That is very passionate about me, I'm very passionate about that. I want to change it for my kids. I want to leave this legacy that they're proud and they want to be involved in the cleaning industry. And I'm new to cleaning, by the way. I'm in 6 or 7 years now. So that's relatively new. I'm not one of the OGs. I'm new money. I'm not old money. And so when I asked Kristen, he told me that he wanted to open a business. I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't see that in him. He has the drive and the motivation and the work ethic. But entrepreneurs have this trait, this risk factor that other people don't have, right? So he's an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. He can do everything in business. He can manage people. He can build processes. He can talk to customers. But the risk factor was missing in him. I didn't say a word to you.
No.
I also didn't know that he put that on there because he was trying to keep up with me, or thought that that's what he needed to do to keep up with me. But that risk factor, and I didn't say a word because it's not my place to stomp on his vision if that's what he truly wanted to do. But writing it down, and we go back every quarter and look at our vision. Is this still what we want? Is it still in line? And the vision will, because it's like an exercise, Amy, you won't get it right the first time. Like my first version of the vivid vision for like Organize It was like very superficial, and it was like overinflated, and I wasn't being true to myself yet. And then I've readjusted them over time. And so every quarter we go back and look at it, and we've changed it over time. Of like, what's the bigger picture?
And I do think that you're going to have to go probably through 4 iterations of a vision to get to the real you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be peeling off layers from yourself. That's not me. That's not me. That's not me. And eventually you're going to get to the point to where you're like, that's me.
So in my vision, so we have 6 visions. You're gonna think this is overkill, and we got in from like, what's life, and life is you need a vision in your life, whether you own a business or you're an employee or if you're a stay-at-home mom. We all need a vision of like, that's where we're going. It's the North Star. And in my vision, it's funny because I said I wanted to be 140 pounds in my personal. So we each have a personal vision. We have a family vision. And then each company has a vision. So we have 7 visions, 4 companies: Sell, Convert, Clean, Woot Recruit, Organize It, and Libby DeLucian LLC. And then we have the family vision, and we each have a personal vision. I'm supposed to have one more, which is our couples vision. Mm-hmm. If you follow Cameron Herold's structure, you're supposed to have a couples vision. And if you haven't seen Cameron Herold's, I recommend you go read it, because it is the couples.
Fire.
It is fire. They talk about lots of fun stuff.
Cameron is an interesting dude.
They talk about a lot of fun stuff in their couples vivid vision, like their sex life. And God, am I probably going to get banned on Facebook for saying that word
again.
Travels and trips and what they want, and romance. I should have said romance. But we review it all. We review it all the time, and we look at it, and it's on a place where we see it frequently. And then what we did from there is we made vision boards on our computers and our phones that visually represent the visions. And it works. It works. We also did this with our employees, Woot Recruit employees. I didn't do it last year with the Organize employees. I did it 2 years ago. I did it last year with Woot Recruit employees, and they're doing it. Like, they're buying houses, they bought a car, like they're going on, they're doing the things on the exercise we did and on the vision boards, and they're putting it on their work computers, like their work screens.
And I want to give you an example is my overarching statement, my affirmation for my entire vision is I plan just because, not because of.
Yeah. So it's very insightful, but these all go together, because you can't write a true vision until you've worked through your issues, your crap, your self-sabotaging, how you set yourself up, you're not being honest to yourself. And it's all self-work. It's all self-work. I see Miti on here. If you're looking for a holistic coach, Michelle, fabulous. You do have to be in the Miami area, because she just does in person.
You can always fly in there. It's a good airport.
You can fly in. But it's all inner work that we tend to overlook, because we're answering phones and emails and issues and kids and complaints, and we don't do it. This is the work that we don't do, because this is let me tell you what, I've birthed 3 children with no drugs. I have had 4 miscarriages. I have been divorced, and I have been emotionally and physically abused. I have been married only once, because I wasn't married to the other guy. Married once. I have 4 businesses. I've had businesses that have failed. And this work that I'm talking about, your true vision, what you want, how are you self-sabotaging, is the hardest thing I have ever been through. It is the work that no one wants to do. And until you do this work, you will never get to the other side. You will never get to the 3rd mountain. And that's why there's 3 mountains on my logo for the Libby DeLucian brand. You will never get to this work. And I have to thank Dan Martell, like, so graciously. We're in his group, in his software group, and it has nothing to do with software. We show up and they're like asking me to rappel off the side of a 475-foot building. And then we're doing Reiki breathing exercises, and we're going to meditate, and then we're going over here to breathe fire. And like, it has nothing to do with software and everything to do with self-work, self-mastery. And until you do this, it's impossible to get to the other side. He's the guy who taught me this. And if you all say, oh, I've seen you change over the time, that's the change. That's it. I didn't buy, there was no easy button, no course, no software. There was, every quarter I show up and Dan makes us do scary crap. He makes us do scary stuff. He doesn't make you, you can opt out. You know, and that is that work that you have to do to get to the other side. There is no course, YouTube video, recording, answer. You can't even hire someone to help you do this. And that's why it's the hardest work. That's why no one wants to do it. I didn't want to do it. You know why I didn't want to do it? I was so ashamed of my past. I was so ashamed because everyone looks at me like, oh my gosh, you have it all together. And in a room with Dan Martell doing a Reiki breathing exercise, we all got done and we're crying, is that I had like a vision of I cannot get to the next level until I openly talk and address about my past, because my past was horrible. It was not great. It wasn't always bad, but there was a time in it that was absolutely horrible and that I was ashamed of letting myself get mentally and physically abused. But alcoholism, my ex was an alcohol, and I mean, I didn't see it. I was blind, I guess, until we separated. But I didn't talk about it. Also, I didn't want our boys to hear that about their dad.
Yeah.
And so before, and I mean, this is work that nobody wants to do. I had to go to our kids and ask them permission to tell my story because that was their father. And if I didn't tell the story, I could not get to the next place. I would keep self-sabotaging. I would keep failing. I would keep lying to myself, and I wasn't working on me. And so I had to ask the boys, and they were like, my 26-year-old was like, absolutely, Mom. Like, I know like you're going to do it with grace. And I know he lived through it. Believe me. Austin was too young to remember. I think I was 1.5 when I left him, when we broke up. But Billy was, 11, 12 years old. And I had to ask their permission, and I had to learn how to talk about this and make sure that I rewrote my past, because we all rewrite our memories. I rewrote them properly. I rewrote them honestly and properly for his mother's sake, who I'm still very close with, for his memory, but also what I went through. And to be honest with myself and open to do this work, because there is no other side if you don't. It's just, you're going to stay here. You're going to churn. You're not going to grow the company. You're not going to be open and honest. You're going to constantly struggle, constantly blame others until you do this work. And it's hard work. But guess what? This work costs you nothing. Mm-hmm. There's no, like, the only reason that I paid to be in Dan's group, Dan just exposed me to the idea. But it costs you no money to do this self-work. You don't need to sign up for anything. But it's the hard crap that nobody wants to do because it's hard.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
No, it's just the self-work has been huge for me. And something I'm still working through, because I went through that self-work as well in going and meeting with my sister, the one that lives up north, and having that exercise.
I'm laughing because when I go through things, I invite Chris along, and sometimes he comes and sometimes he doesn't. And he kept telling me this story, right? This is the rewrite your past. Oh, I had a great childhood. And I'm like, dude, I can't say the F word, but you are more, emotionally than I am. And I was, I went through some bad crap, and I didn't say anything. And I was just like, okay, like, sure. And I kept asking him, and then he got to this. But
Yeah.
you were rewriting your past in your head.
Yep. And reasoning myself out of it. Yeah. Until I actually sat down and worked on myself. So if you haven't yet done that proper self-work, like Libby talked about, it will be a life changer if you are open with yourself and you actively work through it and you aren't afraid to expose yourself to yourself.
So, it's great. And Chris worked through those things. He actually flew to see his sister so he could have a conversation with her.
I wrote down an entire page and a half of things that I needed to make sure that were addressed and talked about, regardless if I had an answer or not. But just to at least have voiced it and said it and made the statement, because I was honestly, the biggest thing was that I was hiding from myself. And that if I didn't say these things out loud, they never became truth. Because again, if somebody says something, it's subjective. But if you say it, it's absolute truth. And so the thing is, once those words come out of your mouth, from your brain, you create them and you say them out loud, they become absolute truth. And so the moment I said them, again, trying to say it through like balled up emotions and crying, but once I said them, there was this complete unlock that happened. And I think coming through that, again, there's still little bits and pieces to practice, but there's much more intention behind what I'm doing and the transparency behind it that would never, ever have come about if I did not do that.
Yeah. And so with this whole self-sabotage, visions, goals, if you look at the screen, there's 3 mountains, right? And the 3 mountains, it's over there. And that's the logo I chose to go with for Libby, Delucian LLC. And why did I choose 3 mountains? And the top one has a higher peak. And that's because we have this goal or this affirmation, this thing we want to do, and we get to the top. We get there. Oh, I want to be $1 million cleaning company. I did this, by the way. I'm going to be $1 million cleaning company. And you get there and you're up there and you're just kind of like, well, that bucket, that thing inside me isn't fulfilled. I'm just kind of like, oh, well, that, okay. Like I'm here, now what? And then you're like, ooh, I want to be a $2 million cleaning company like them. And you work your butt off and you do it and you get there. Whether you had profit or not, whether you self-sacrificed, whether you neglected your family and your relationship, but you got there, right? You got there and you're up there and you're like, it's not what I thought it was going to be. Like, I'm still empty or void. There's still something missing. And then there's the third mountain, right? The third mountain, and this is not my statement, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to give him credit. I don't know where he got it. He probably got it from somebody else. Is that the third mountain is typically the person you needed in your darkest moment, right? That's a Dan Martell quote. The third mountain. And he doesn't call it a third mountain. He calls it like your why, like your empire. It's what are you building it for? And I'm calling it my third mountain. And it's like, and typically it's the person you needed in your darkest moment. And that's your why. That's what we're all trying to achieve. And we need our businesses to be the vehicle, because your business is either going to help you be the vehicle to get there, give you the money, right? Money freedom or time freedom, or your business could be part of the third mountain. And so when we start to look at our businesses like the vehicles to help us get to the third mountain, we're not just cleaning houses, guys. Like, we're not just mowing lawns. We're not just power washing, cleaning windows. It's a vehicle to help you get to the third mountain, which is the person that you needed in your darkest moment. What is that? And so, it is self-mastery, it's work. And when you start to look at my vision, my mission on that scale, and Jen said, I just started my vision from retreat. I haven't done it yet. Haven't done the exercises yet. How is yours different? Mine, none of this is in that. It's different. Like, I used Vivid Vision, the book, to write my vision, but this overarching third mountain, self-sabotage, none of that's in the book. I should write a book. None of this is in my other book either, though. My other book's more about business and process. It's tactical. But this will be in my coaching program that I roll out. It's supposed to launch February of this year. And maybe it'll launch. I don't know. And maybe it's February, maybe March. See, look, I'm not ready. I'm self-sabotaging. It will be ready in March. I've been saying this forever. I've been trying to roll it out. So and when you have like that third mountain in place, then and it's hard. So when I sat down and I wrote the first vision I ever did, I cried, I laughed, I was pissed. I was like, and it's in a very emotional state. So if you're just like filling in blanks, you're not doing it right.
You were every single night. You were in
every
bed.
night. It took me 4 weeks to write my first vision. 4 weeks, and it was 19 pages long, guys.
This was before ChatGPT also.
And this was before ChatGPT. I'm pissed off now because ChatGPT's here. It was 4 weeks. I cried. I laughed. 19 pages and that was only for Woot Recruit.
And it was still wrong.
And it was still wrong. And that was only for Woot Recruit. And then I had an amazing COO who helped me at that time. I gave it to him because we didn't have ChatGPT yet. He cleaned it up because I have horrible grammar. And that's what led to me in kind of Paul parting ways. And then I sat down and wrote one for Organize It. And then later that at the end of the year, we did a couples, not an individual, couples, family. But anyways, Jen, these particular exercises are not in there. But that mountain, that third mountain, that why, and we're looking like Amy and Faith, I saw you on here, and Jen and Erica, when we look at our cleaning businesses as a vehicle to get us to the third mountain, right? What is that? Because we're not just cleaning houses, mowing lawns, and washing windows. There's a bigger why inside of us that you just have not found yet. And so that's why the 3 mountains are there. That's the explanation of everything I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And what the logo represents is I've done that. I've gotten to the first mountain, $1 million cleaning company. And I was kind of like, I literally, listen to this. When I won the green jacket, so in the cleaning industry, when you hit $1 million, you get a green jacket. I sat on the plane on the way back and I cried. Chris, do you remember why I cried? Mm-hmm. Tell them why I cried.
Because you could not share that moment with anybody.
I couldn't, it was only meaningful to me at that, like, I won the jacket and everything I did to get it. And then on the plane, I cried because I was like, I was so tired. I had blown so much money trying to get to $1 million because I didn't ask you your profit, but I got to $1 million because I was funneling money into marketing. And I sat on the plane and I cried because the moment, like how I was feeling, I thought was the third mountain. I thought that was what I was trying to get to. And here's the thing, we need to get to these things to get to the third mountain. But you have to realize it's a journey. And if you can do these exercises now, you'll get to the third mountain faster than even me, right? Mm-hmm. You can get there faster than me. You can learn these things through me and beat me there, like to your third mountain. So we need to wrap up. We've been on forever.
I do have to give a shout out to Yaya because
You said her name. Oh God, she's coming.
No,
it's like
fine.
Beetlejuice.
She's going to come over here anyway. I wanted her to anyway. But I gave her explicit directions that she was not to leave her room so that we could be able to take care of the call. And then afterwards, I'll go ahead and get her. And we have this whole thing about, I'll come and get you once we're done. That way we know.
Yeah, we're done if you want to say hi.
Come here. But I want to give a shout out because we've been on here for an hour and almost 45 minutes. And she stayed in her room her entire time. She's turned on Echo. She's played Moana soundtrack and Frozen soundtrack. I don't know how many times. Played with her dog.
Yeah.
Come here.
She can't hear
but
us.
I want to just give a shout out to her because it's not often that this happens. But
Well, it is often that because Amy said, thank you for being vulnerable. Amy, actually, we do this every Saturday. We're very vulnerable. That's part of our morning date. You're coming into a conversation that we have every day. And we're just doing it on a Saturday live.
Yeah.
So we do this every Saturday. We go live around 10 to 11 a.m. Because I'm not self-sabotaging and overcommitting to 10 a.m. and holding so tightly to my morals.
Ish.
So about 10 to 11. But we do this every Saturday morning when we're not traveling. And so if you enjoyed this, if you liked it, share it. Share it with another business owner. Share it with a couple. Share it with a spouse. Tag somebody in it who's like, hey, man, this is what I'm going through. Or, hey, maybe this is helpful to you. Because I have spent a tremendous amount of time learning how to get through my past, how to build these businesses, how to work with my spouse. Oh, my last marriage, horrible. Would never do it. I wouldn't even let him in a business because of the past.
Yeah.
I have to thank Paul Fasthauer for that. Because Paul brought Chris in and I said, I ain't working with him. You work with him.
And he talked my language too.
And he talked to his, yeah. And I've worked through these things. And the reason we decided to share, it's part of our vision, is to share the way that couples work together and you run your family, like you manage your family through an entrepreneur journey. Chris works in the company and I'm his boss. Not really. I ask him everything, but I'm still technically his boss. But like, how do we make this work? What's the work we're going through to make this work? What's the work we're going through to make the business work? What is the work we're going through to just be happy? Mm-hmm. That's it. To just be happy. So I hope you guys have a great Saturday. Join us. Whoa, I don't know if we're going to be here next Saturday.
If we are,
we'll be in Miami.
Miami, Virgin Islands.
No, we don't fly out till the next day.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. So maybe we'll go on Sunday from St. John's.
Yeah.
Live. Anyways, we'll catch you guys next weekend. But again, share it, comment, tell me if you liked it, tell me if you didn't. If you didn't like it, didn't hurt my feelings, I promise. I've done enough work to not let it hurt my feelings. But I really enjoyed the conversation and thank you guys all for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.